Good evening and welcome. It's All for United. We are back and it is our midweek mayhem show. That's where we're going to be sitting here talking to you, the fans, and indeed our people on the panel about all things United, as we love to do. And of course, we're in the middle of the Euros. It's Spain 0, Italy 0. Quite an engrossing game going on there. So hopefully you've got that on in the background and are having a little watcheroo of that. But if you're not, don't worry about it. Perhaps you're watching this after watching that game, in which case you already know what's happening there, but you'll be able to timestamp whereabouts we were when you realise that we talk about if a goal's been scored or not. Of course, it'll finish 0-0 now, and there won't be any more references to it, but we'll see how we go. The fixtures are out. It's all good now. It's all steam ahead as we look for the future of Manchester United. And there are a few things to talk about. So Jim Ratcliffe's been in the press. We've got loads to chat about alongside the Euros, but we are going to kick off with the fixtures. Before we do, let's say hello to the lovely people that are sat around our round table today. And that is, just below me, Mr. Andy Beanie. How you doing, sir?
All good. Yeah, nice to see the fixtures. Premier League will be back before we know it. A little bit downbeat by England, but, we'll concentrate on United tonight to hopefully cheer me up. But, yeah, all good.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get there, mate. I can't imagine we get the whole show without talking about the absolute quality that we saw a few hours ago. And he's back by popular demand, whilst also apparently shopping on Amazon. Stu, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm just doing a couple of bits and pieces work-wise, and it was Adidas's website. I need some new indoor pegs, so I'm just deciding what to get. But apart from that, yeah, I'm all good. Yeah. Kind of enjoyed the break actually, although I've been busy work-wise doing a few bits and pieces. But I quite enjoyed the break from footy as well. So it's all good. And then of course we're dished up with that woeful bollocks from earlier. So it'll be an interesting show. Looking forward to it.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll definitely get there. And of course, the right-hand man on the left-hand side, as ever, Mr. Dan Field. How the bloody hell are you?
I've managed to get here on ice skating day on time, so it's a win-win.
Oh. On time, and then, just sit backstage.
Yeah, that's it.
Like it in my life. Just lurking. It's unbelievable. But there we go. Anyway, we are back, and I'm really looking forward to this show. But the thing I'm looking forward to the most is talking about the fixtures, because they are out. It is always a massive day when you get the opportunity to see who you are up against. And I'm going to start with Stu here, because Stu was a season ticket holder. I'm sure he's got his thoughts that he'll probably mention on that system. But when the fixtures are coming out, Stu, what ones do you look for first? Are you one of those who sort of looks at the fixture list and is just sort of looking for that first five that will run in and deciding whether or not we're going to get a good start or that sort of thing? Are you one of those that just looks for what's the Christmas fixtures going to be like? Or are you straight in with the rivals? Do you want to see where's Liverpool, where's Arsenal, where's City? How do you digest your fixtures when they're announced?
I usually go with the fourth option, and that is I'm kind of a little bit, the fixtures are out. We've got 38 games, and we've got to win 30 of those games if we want to be champions. That's how I look at it. And then I tend to think, well, it'd be great to get somebody early like Scousers or City or Arsenal, Chelsea, something like that. I know a lot of people were thinking, or a lot of fans don't like to play your rival straight away. I don't mind. I think, get it done, get it gone. The first 3 to 6 weeks of the season, nobody's playing particularly well. And that's the best time to strike. We could come in and completely beat Liverpool. We could completely beat City, Chelsea, etc. And then before you know it, we've got 9 points in the bag against our rivals, and it sets us up quite nicely. So I must admit, I tend not to look, although working from home, I had it on in the background while I was doing bits and pieces. Or was I sleeping? Either way, I was doing, one or two things work-wise. It all came through. And then Jake phones me, my lad phones me. He said, fucking hell, Dad, we got Fulham. Absolutely brilliant. Get this season ticket sorted, for Christ's sake. And he's pulling his hair out with this new system, because when I first had my ticket all those years ago, it was a physical ticket. In fact, I had a league match ticket book before that as well. So, but you physically had tickets, and you could pass them around, and then all of a sudden it becomes, as the years go on, it becomes a bit digital. And it was all right. Last couple of years has been fine with the digital tickets. You know, you download onto multiple devices. So me and Jake both had our, the ticket, etc. Not that I ever get to use it, Baz, as you well know, but it was there. But now it's downloaded to one device, and you get your ticket. Your actual ticket itself comes 3 hours before kickoff, and that then will change. That barcode or a QR code will change, so it makes life particularly difficult. So I sent every season ticket holder an email a couple of weeks ago saying, can you try and download it, etc., etc., etc. And it's been an absolute fucking nightmare. So, one of those. And even Jake can't get it sorted, so God only knows. He said, Dad, make sure you get it sorted for the Fulham game. As looking at it, I've just pulled it up here, actually. Fulham at home, depending what Fulham do, if we can snag Robinson from them, by the way, and Paulina rather than letting go to Bayern Munich, I would be exceptionally confident. But you just never know what you're going to get with the Marco Silva team. They've been absolutely superb last season. He's really matured as a manager, in which case Fulham matured as a team. Brighton away, be interesting. They've got a young pup. I think he's about your age, and he's down about 30, 31, something like that. This kid they've just bought in from Brighton.
I love you, Stu. At this present moment in time,
that's all right.
I love you so much.
Well, you
31. Anyway. Wow.
You should always love me anyway, dude. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm about 5 years older than that. Well, that is.
Well, you carry your age well. You carry your age well. And of course, we got Liverpool at home to game of the season against Arne Slot. And the best part of that is nobody knows what to expect from him. So I think we can get 9 points at the first three, fellas. I don't know what you think, but I think Liverpool will need time to adjust. They've been quite quiet so far in the market, haven't they? As have we. So it'll be quite interesting to see. So, and then Southampton away, we should be looking at points there. But then you got Palace away, so that's where it could all kind of fall apart, or your momentum gains. So it's a really good start to the season for us. I think I've seen a lot of fans moaning and whinging about it, but the bottom line, Baz, is you got to play him anyway. So it doesn't matter where you play him, you got to play him anyway. So. So not too bad. And then we got Villa away, haven't we, in October? And I don't think Villa will have anywhere near the type of season that they had this year. They've been brilliant this year, but I don't think they'll have that type of season next season.
It's interesting you say that, Stu, because Andy, I was just literally about to ask you that question because Stu's taken us through the sort of the first four. That's fine, but we've got Palace, and then Spurs, and then Villa, and then Brentford, and then West Ham, and all of them are sort of tricky, and then Chelsea. And you look at that as you're getting through sort of September, October, they're the ones where we've really struggled this past season. They're the ones where we get results we maybe didn't expect to get. What's your thoughts on the sort of the beginning of the Premier League season? Because I mean, obviously, some of these probably get moved. It often happens, we all get excited looking at, we've got them on that date, and then before you know it, it's on a Sunday or it's 7 weeks later because we've got to play the Europa League. So we get all excited about it, but it never stays the same. But talk to me a little bit about that. What would you say that running looks like? Because you're a smart boy. You've been looking for everything doing this season and talking about it on your TikTok as well. That panics me a little bit because I feel like if we're getting to sort of October and we're having the similar sort of results, the pressure and the tension is probably not going to be a very pleasurable experience around social media.
I think it's all about how we start. I mean, it looks very similar to me, like the first Ten Hag season. Was it Brentford we started with the first Ten Hag season? And then we had Liverpool around sort of 3 or 4. It feels very similar to that to me. Like on paper, it looks like an easy start. But Fulham beat us last time at Old Trafford, if you remember, 2-1. Brighton, I don't think it's ever easy. But Liverpool could be the catalyst again to sort of kick us on. But I think those fixtures you just mentioned, I think if we start the season well, you go into them with a bit of positivity, you go into them with a bit of form. If you start the season badly, you're kind of scrapping around for results. And I think I think the first sort of 5 or 6, I think, is massive because it says how you're going to attack the next 6. Do you know what I mean? But for me, I think the first 6, as Stu said, I think the first 3 is very, very possibly 9. But it's if you flip it on its head, it's very possibly 0 if we play how we have been last season. I think we need to hit the ground running. But I think if the first 6 go down well, then you attack people like Villa, you attack people like West Ham, Spurs. You go into them games with no fear, with no issue. I think starting the season off positively, I think a must for Ten Hag, for the players, for the fans. Sort of how we're going to look at the season. Because I think last season it killed us very early as a fan base because we were worried of what we were seeing and what was happening. So I think if we start the season positively, then Villa, West Ham, Spurs, for me as a fan, I'd go into them games and like, yeah, we'll take 3 points there. We'll do this, we'll do that. But how we start the season off, I think it just dictates what happens, doesn't it? Really.
I mean, you say that, and you're not wrong. That is exactly how you want to go into games. You want to go in with no fear. You want to go in with no worries. You want to go in with full confidence. You don't want to be going in with no Shaw, no left backs, no right backs, no centre backs, no centre midfielders, any of those things that we have seen over the last 12 months. Dan, we'll throw it over to you then as we sort of bring the fixtures discussion to a close. You can tell us which sort of person you are. You know, it's almost like that. How do you eat yours with the old cream egg? Marie, bless her, she's come in and said, my first check is whether we're a home or away last game of the season. It's interesting because we had that chat backstage. We've got Villa last game of the season at Old Trafford, and you know that's nice because I think it's been a while since we've had a home game at the end of the season. But really, really nice to see some of the other ones. It's Wolves on Boxing Day. I'm not sure if that's going to have the same sort of feel-good factor as we had with the Villa game on Boxing Day, the last Boxing Day. And then, of course, otherwise, March the 16th, my birthday, is the Carabao Cup final. So that would be quite nice. Just throw that one out there for you now, Eric. You know, we're going to have to go full-blooded on that one. That would be really nice to win. But, yeah, how do you consume your fixture list and what do you make of the first 5 or 6 games?
Normally, it's straight to see when we play the Scousers. That's just with the family being Liverpool fans and everything like that. Straight to see when we play the Scousers. Not really bothered about any other fixture after that. I tend to have a look around my birthday, same as you. Who we've got? I think we've got Wolves before, Bournemouth after, within the space of like 3 days. Obviously, we've got to mention we've got the Charity Shield final to look forward to just before the season starts as well against Man City. So that's another one. So that could start the season off really well for us. I think we play Liverpool as our last friendly. Before,
yeah, we did.
Yeah, before the Carabao, the Charity Shield. So it's another. We're playing Liverpool, I think, twice in 4 games or something like that.
Yeah, we have, because we got our first friendly 3 weeks.
Yeah,
July 12th, isn't it? Something like that.
Something like that. It's like 2 days after. Yeah. It's all quick.
July the 15th.
Yeah.
Is it the 15th? Is it? I knew it was soon. I knew it was like literally. I mean, it's just 0 turnaround, is it?
Literally, it's like a couple of days after the maybe not a couple of days. I think it's the day after the European Cup final.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is a quick turnaround. I just go back to last season, to be honest. I can remember the game against Arsenal. I know Ten Hag's referenced it quite a few times through the season with Garnacho's goal. It killed the season for us in a sense. We lost 3-1 to Arsenal in the end when we could have won 2-1. And it really did kill the season. And I find it interesting that I'm sure we played Brentford game week 8 with McTominay scoring the double at the end and us winning that game. And we got Brentford again game week 8 this time. So that's good omen for that, maybe. But no, we've got to start strong. I think, unfortunately, the pressure is going to be on Ten Hag no matter what. So, I mean, a confident Man United team, I look at these first set of fixtures and I don't see why we shouldn't be winning most of them, because we've got Spurs at home, we've got Liverpool at home. I would say Liverpool at home and Villa away are probably the two that concern me the most. We should be, if we're a serious team for pushing top 4 next season, we should be expecting to beat the likes of Spurs at home. That should be what we're doing. So it's interesting. I think the issue that Ten Hag's got is that it will turn sour really, really quickly. So unless we're immaculate in the first 5 games, I think it will go south quite quickly. So it's really important we get off to a solid start. I would take 7 points from the first 3 games. I think that's a really solid start. You take a draw off Liverpool. I think a top 4 record last season wasn't fantastic. Even top 6 wasn't fantastic. So we've got to improve that next season. No, for me, mainly the Scousers. When do we play them? Whether it's good or bad, I think I'll tell you what I have done now. I've looked through the fixture list in general, and it's weird to say because it will move, but there's not many games where we've got 4 or 5 really difficult games in a row that's happened in the past. We seem to have like a couple of games. I think we've got Newcastle City at one point after each other, but it's quite spread through the season. So if we can get some momentum going, we should be in a good position.
Yep, no, absolutely. As you said, it could go south. Could go Southgate. We'll get there. Let's take a look at those friendlies just very quickly because you mentioned those.
Yeah.
And we've spoken a little bit about the tour that we did last year because I don't like the fact that we go flying off to America and try and do all these, fancy, almost like marketing things. It doesn't feel anymore like it's about the lads getting minutes into their legs. It seems like it's more about the brand and more about showing off across the globe, which, I get it from a money point of view. You do need to try and get that in there. But as you've just mentioned, the first game, we're traveling to Trondheim to face Rosenborg, the day after the championship final. And like, who's going to be available for that? I mean, imagine if England make it, there's going to be no Luke Shaw. In fact, if you would imagine most of the players that are off out of the Euros are not going to be available. So there's Fernandes gone, there's Dalot gone. It's highly unlikely they're going to make players that have played in the Euros come to go and face against Rosenborg. And I feel like that's a misnomer in itself. The whole purpose of pre-season is to get your team playing the way you want them to play and to be able to make those mistakes and to do the things that you want to do. You can't do that if half of your squad is missing. I appreciate, obviously, the season it is going to begin on the 10th of August, as you said, with the Community Shield. So there is a very short window. I get that. But this is half of the problem, isn't it? UEFA have scheduled in a competition that ultimately has meant, because we're doing this every 2 years, that some footballers just don't really get a proper rest. So you try and give them that rest, but it's at the expense of your club team. And this is why I think so many United fans are very much club before country, because they're just not fussed about all of this other stuff. But yeah, talk to me. I don't care who, any of you can jump in on this one, but talk to us about the friendlies we've got. So we've got Rosenborg at Trondheim, then facing Rangers in Edinburgh at Murrayfield Stadium. We've got Arsenal, but of course we're not going to do that in England. We're going to take them all the way to the SoFi Stadium in California. I don't know why that was a New Yorker saying that. That was what happened. I'm walking here. Get out of the way. So we've got all that going on. Thursday, the 1st of August. It's a home game, but we're against Betis in the Snapdragon Stadium, again in California. And then inexplicably, 3 days later, we decide to travel to South Carolina in the Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, Liverpool. And it just feels like unnecessary travel. I don't know. What's your, just a minute each. What's your thoughts about these pre-seasons? Because for me, they're just not worth it. And I don't think they actually help us to prepare.
So there's a report come out, I think it was a couple of days ago, that the American market's worth $860 million, quid, whichever. They've got about 7 million Premier League supporters. And that's the market they're tapping into. It's as simple as that, really. Unfortunately, you've got Copa America players that won't be playing. You've got, certainly Garnacho, because they're likely to get to the final again. Brazil may well be there as well. And of course, you've got, the Euros. So I don't think you'll see any of the first team squad meet up until the American tour. So the Rosenborg tour, you'll see a lot of the 18s and 21s will go out and play the game. So I think America will be the first time that you see some of the players. what I would imagine Ten Hag will be saying to the board right now is getting the players that I want that aren't at the Euros now and get them here, get them ready to go July the 1st, so that we've got at least 2 weeks to do something with these players. But then you've got to get these players off the books as well. So there's a lot to do between now and July. And this is one of the reasons why I was that confident we would never have got rid of Ten Hag. The timing, there's just no time whatsoever to get rid of it. You know, if people were talking about Southgate, whatever, you wouldn't see him till the 14th, 15th of July at the earliest. If got there, it was just never going to happen. We were never getting rid of Ten Hag. So all this bullshit that the media were portraying that we were, it's just lazy journalism. It was never going to happen. And I think, actually, I know Ten Hag's come out and said a few bits and pieces, but he would have known weeks before we knew. He would have known exactly what was happening weeks ago. And it's quite interesting. I know you want to touch on a few bits and pieces later. So it's all about finance, I'm afraid, Baz. That's all it's about. Nothing more and nothing less. That's all it is. And it's quite sad, really, to say that, but it is. Sorry, Timmy.
Sorry, Beanie. Just wanted to jump in for NT. He said he missed the fixtures. Does it say where they are? And it absolutely did say where they are, but I will repeat them for you as you are a regular. It's Rosenborg at Trondheim. 5 days later, we go to Scotland, which isn't too far away, to be fair. That's the Murrayfield Stadium in Edinburgh. Then 8 days later, obviously the American tour, such as it is, begins. But we are in Inglewood, California, then San Diego, California a few days later, 4 days later. And then on the Sunday, the 4th of August, we are in Columbia, South Carolina. And this is what I mean. That just feels like such an unnecessary last bit. Why didn't you have the travel and then 2 games in California so it's not so bad? Like, who is doing the logistics? And this is it for me, Beanie. You know, feel free to say what you were just about to. But equally, amongst all of that, we've just said we've got all these players that aren't going to be there. But you're looking at players like Bruno, who's already been available for almost every single game this season. He's had a couple of weeks off before going off to international duty. He'll be lucky if he gets a couple of weeks off before he's got to come back and play again. And that's got to catch up with him at some point, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Stu says, I think the overseas markets are massive. And whether we like it or not, United is a brand. And them pushing that brand to the American market, to the Asian market, I think, you know, it's what they have to do to bring the money in. I mean, I don't know the figures of what we get from those sort of markets, but I think just United being there, whether it's not Bruno, whether it's not Højlund, whether it's not the big boys, I think United just being there. I mean, it's been like that for years, hasn't it? For as long as I can remember, we've always done an Asian tour. We've always done an American tour. Yeah, I mean, the thing I don't like is come that Fulham game, a lot of those players ain't going to be up to scratch. They're going to have done a lot of travelling, and they're still going to be finding that. They're still going to be finding that fitness. They're still going to be finding that form in the Premier League, and the Premier League's a tough league. You know, Fulham maybe won't have done this travelling. Brighton maybe won't have. Liverpool probably will have. But yeah, I'd prefer them to be up to scratch. But the foreign markets just won't see that, and we are a brand. However much we don't like it, we're a big money brand, and Radcliffe and the Glazers will want to cash in on that, and it's just a sad reality, I think.
I think it is really. Dan, have you got anything you want to add on pre-season and bonjour, Jarvis?
They need to sort out the logistics better, to be honest. But I don't think it's just a club issue. I think it's a football issue in general. FIFA expect too much from the players, so does UEFA. You've seen it at this tournament. We was talking about the time being added on, and I was saying I hate time wasting. But the reason they've cut it is because it's the players. The players can't run for an extra 10 minutes at the end every game because they're knackered. So they just need to sort out the logistics. Me personally, I hope we don't see any United first teamer until at least the 28th of July in the tour. It's just needless. Bruno Fernandes needs a good 3 weeks off after the Euros, no matter what, because you can't afford a player like that to burn out. So they've just got to get the logistics right of it all.
But 3 weeks isn't enough. I'm sorry, it's just not enough, is it?
No, it's not. Yeah, and then
the whole year of football, I'm just going to take 3 weeks off. I'm not even funny. The teachers get 6 weeks. Don't get political, everyone, but they get 6 weeks, and yes, you're ready to sort of go back at that sort of point, but you need that break. You need a good, decent break away in order to be able to not just be physically ready, but to be mentally ready and to have that opportunity to feel like you've sort of lived your life almost. And
Well, it
have a
don't
look
really
at
help.
normality.
It don't help the players doing this really, because they're not going to play together for maybe 3 or 4 of the games, so they're not getting in any sort of sync. So all these competitions don't help. In essence, it's going to be a tough start for most of the bigger teams. I mean, Crystal Palace will be quietly annoyed that they've had 4 players go to the Euros, which I think is the most of any team, because that's going to put a spanner in the works come the start of the season. These players won't be up to scratch, and it's players they're going to heavily rely on. So it's not just a United issue. It's a issue across the Premier League. But it's like they say, like Liverpool will be doing it, Arsenal will do it, City will do it. So it's all the big teams that have got to sort of figure it out better. But there's going to be a breaking point with all these competitions, all this fixture congestion and stuff like that. There will be a breaking point eventually.
It can't keep going. I mean, you look at what NT's just said here. I hope we do a pre-season in Bury one year and see how that works out. But you're giggling. That's what it used to be. I can remember, again, living in Stevenage, the one thing you always used to hope you'd get is that you would get a Premier League club come to your club for a pre-season friendly, and you're not expecting it necessarily to be, you weren't expecting Harry Kane and all of the big names necessarily. We'd expect a few. And that was the whole purpose of it, is that you're getting minutes in those legs, and it's local. It's not that far away. You're not sitting there and traveling a ridiculous amount of time. I don't see it. I think Dave's got his tongue firmly in cheek when he says, who wants to see likes of Bruno or Ericsson? I want to see Amas, Williams and Wheatley and other academy players. Well, if we had our pre-season in Bury, you'd be able to see it. And I totally agree with John. These competitions have got to sort themselves out, because that breaking point is here. Yeah. Like, I love the fact that football's on during the summer. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But equally, it can't carry on, because it's just every year. It's too much.
It's worth noting, though, fellas, when you're talking about logistics, you have to bear in mind that these towns or these counties or these states, they're paying good money. They're giving Manchester United 3, 4, 5, 10 million quid to go and play in their state. That's the issue.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. So logistically, as much as you're right, and I agree with you, but if Charlotte, because most of the states now have got an affiliation with an MLS team, and they're doing everything they can to grow that team. And if you're at Charlottesville or whatever that team's called, who plays within that area, or Inglewood, whatever team it is, if you can sell out that crowd, then it's worth paying them the $10 million or whatever it is for Manchester United to turn up. And that's the problem. It's the same with boxing at the moment. You're hardly ever going to see a world-class title fight back in the UK, because the money's all in Saudi Arabia now.
You know what? It's really interesting, Stu, to say this, because it's you don't have the running order of the show. You don't know the questions you're going to ask.
Sorry.
But you've literally tied it in with the exact question I wanted to ask you, which was that Bloomberg have done an interview with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, was tweeted out by David Hellier earlier on the 20th at 5:41 in the morning. What's he doing up at that time? But as he sent it out, there's some really interesting quotes and points in here. And so carry on what you're saying by all means, but add this into it if you could, please. He said in his interview, we've got more accountants than we've got sporting people at Manchester United.
Yeah.
Now, this is obviously all talking about how the Premier League are potentially in danger of ruining the way that the game is sort of governed and run, and all those sorts of things. But just that in itself, that is a quote that I would never, ever have expected to read about Manchester United. And when you're sitting here and talking about the last sort of 12 years, this is it, isn't it? If you have got more accountants in your football club than you have people that are there for the football, the money, I know it's important, it can't take over. Because is it any surprise that the on-the-pitch stuff is not working as well as it could do if it's all about this big brand? You're nothing if your brand isn't playing football. Surely.
Yeah, so in the car industry, famous last words have always been, oh my God, the accountants have got all this interior, or the accountants have got all of these brakes, the accountants have got all of this, accountants have got all of this. And that's what's exactly happened to Manchester United. They've strangled the life out of the club in terms of, finance. And it's really the knock-on effect was what the Glazers can get out and in their dividends. We all know this anyway, so we don't need to go down that line now. So Jim, I've seen and read most of his interview as well. It was quite telling what he was talking about the accountants. He's talking about the unpopular decisions he's had to make, but they're not really unpopular decisions when you consider the way that business should be run. Because unfortunately, and Andy was quite clear, and Dan and yourself, Baz, have all mentioned this, that Manchester United ceased to become a football club really from 96, 97 onwards, where the success started to grow, sponsorship started to grow, and then the flotation of the club, which Tottenham tried to do a few years earlier, and it didn't really work. Manchester United was a completely different kettle of fish at that particular time because of momentum and things of this nature. So everything is all about circumstance, unfortunately. And Manchester United have been an absolute victim of what Fergie was able to achieve. And it just created this juggernaut that nobody could foresee in football, and nobody could see it. And the Premier League created this juggernaut and Sky that nobody could foresee in football, except Sky TV. If you remember back in the day when they tried to buy Manchester United, because they knew it was about to explode, they could see how it was going to go, because they were the driving force behind it, weren't they? And so where we are today, right now, he came out and said, I think we spent 1.1 or 1.2 billion Baz net. I can't quite remember the exact figure.
I mean, what's 1.1 billion?
Well, yeah, exactly. And he made the reference point of Real Madrid, and everybody would be scratching their head thinking, how the hell have Real Madrid only spent a net 200 million? But look what they do. Look at the way Real Madrid go out about their business. Yeah, and old Euro, who we're kind of interested in at the moment, a quick phone call from Real Madrid to say, we can't buy you this year because of the Mbappe deal. Just hold on, and we will be in for you in 12 months. Well, you've got my word. And that's how they do it. So they drive the price down now. The Mbappe deal, they'll offset that somehow. I don't know how they'll do it, but they'll offset that somehow. But in that time period, they built this stadium that is phenomenal, probably even better than Tottenham Stadium. And that's saying something, because Tottenham Stadium is just amazing. And it's all about not just economics, but brain power. The brains of these people in key positions. And I think that's what he was getting at, really. These accountants may be good at what they're doing, but they're probably too good at what they're doing. And they've actually squeezed and said, well, we don't need to upgrade the pool in Carrington because they've got a pool anyway. So it doesn't really matter. We don't need to do this. We don't need to do that. But I'd love to know how much money we've actually wasted in chauffeur-driven cars and staff perks and things of that nature, that ultimately you do waste millions of pounds a year doing that. And so it's quite interesting to see that the way that Jim will come out and he'll kind of reassess and do everything. We got some really good people in at the moment, and I know people are having a real go at Ineos the last couple of weeks, but I think there was a different story to tell, and that was, and I'll be brief now, Ten Hag was contracted to the end of 2025. You don't need to say he's staying. He could have just turned up at Carrington and what's the fucking deal? I'm contracted. There was all this hullabaloo about what was happening. So we need to forget that now. The past has got to be the past. You have to move forward. The way they move forward will be really interesting, but he'll have to completely streamline stuff. I'm a great advocate of getting rid of 500-600 people. We don't need 1,200 people at Manchester United. City survive on 750 people. If you get it right, it will be good. This is why I feel within the next 3 years we'll be somewhere where we all expect and want us to be.
No, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with what we've said there. Moving further on into the conversation, though, Beanie, one of the things that certainly we mentioned, one of the first things that Sir Jim did was he got rid of that relaxed work from home policy. So people are having to come into the office. He's also apparently cancelled the corporate credit cards for senior executives. And I like that one. I do like that one because, you know, if you take it back to the old MP's expenses scandals and everything that was going on there, accountability for what your money is going on. So what you're buying there, why am I paying for that? Why, you know, that's a you thing. We pay you enough, thank you very much. You shouldn't be, you know, just taking the mickey just because you've been given a gold-plated credit card. But there's a lot that he's trying to do with. Do you think that we seem to be doing something right? Can you see a sort of a change in how Sir Jim's starting to do things in the hope that he is going to be able to help us? Because we want to make signings, but to do that, we are going to have a better grasp of our finances. Do you think he's doing that?
I mean, he speaks a good game, doesn't he? I mean, whether, you know, the proof is in the pudding and all that. Like Stu says, the amount of people that we employ is unnecessary. Where the money's going is unnecessary. I mean, it just screams how bad the club has been run over the past. I don't know how long the Glazers have been there now. I don't know, what's it been, like 10 years or what? I'm not too sure. He speaks a good game, whether he can deliver what he's saying. But every time I see Radcliffe speak, it sounds like it's the long game. So I think there's an expectation that it isn't going to be quick. It's going to take a long time for him to get United where we want. And for me, that again, it just proves how badly United are run, because we're a mess. And we know that. I mean, we're a mess on the pitch. But if you go into the details of us off the pitch, the amount of people we employ, people working at home, just very simple things like that, it's just wrong. It's just how it's managed. United as a club is just a mess. I think it's going to take time. But yeah, what he says, I mean, I can get behind. And if he's going to turn it around, if he's going to do what he says he's going to do, then I think we are going in the right direction. But I think he needs time. The team need time. The club needs time, and it isn't going to be a quick turnaround. I mean, as Stu said, I've seen Ineos get a lot of stick this summer for not moving fast and for not doing things fast. But he doesn't strike me as a man that does things without giving it its respect and giving it its time that it needs. So I think we need to maybe trust in what Ratcliffe's trying to do, and just give him the time and, you know, see what, because he seems like he knows what he's on about. So he just needs the time to prove or to get into place what he wants to do. But I think it will take time, maybe 3-4 years. I don't know, but it will take time.
I'm going to get to that bit as well. And speaking of good stuff, Spain have taken the lead. It is Spain 1, Italy 0, with a beautiful own goal off of the knee of one of the defenders. So,
they've battered Italy, though, haven't they? I mean, they've absolutely battered them. I mean, Spain look good, don't they? I mean, how good does Morata look as well? Jesus, wept. Who'd have thought that?
It's quite something. Dan, just throw over to you on that one and get talking still about the sort of the money side of things. As you know, the Premier League are looking at trying to limit club spending on player transfers and wages and tying it to revenue and all that sort of thing. Jim Ratcliffe said if you've got a government regulator at the end of the day, they'll regulate, and that won't be good, because then you'll get anchoring, which is set to be trialled next season, which pegs the spending to a factor of the lower club's revenue rather than it being the amount you earn. Now, I've always been, for want of a better word, it's here. You get to spend what you earn. At the end of the day, what's the point in being a Manchester United if you're the most well-supported team? What's the point in going to bloody America to get all the money in if you're only going to be limited to whatever it is that who finished bottom this season? Whatever they got. You know, what's the point? How do you bother? So there's no incentive then to go on and do the sponsorship. And maybe that's what it needs. Maybe that's how we start to siphon some of the money out and bring spending within the Premier League down to a bit. But he's not very happy about that. Do you think that that's something that could help, or do you sort of disagree?
Well, I thought that in his interview he's having a little bit of a dig at some of the rules that are in place, and you can sort of see his frustration in it. But ultimately, it's about the pyramid as well as Manchester United. So I agree with like some. I was talking to some Everton fans about this sort of stuff. So I don't know whether you've seen today, but Everton are selling someone to Villa, who are then going to sell someone back to Everton, who are then selling someone to someone else, and it means that they're going to be inside these PSR rules before the end of the month, and it's just a way of getting around the rules, which is what's going to happen. I tend to agree that I don't understand how Man United as a club can have any complaints about being anchored when we're nearly $1 billion in debt. So you can't say to a team that's not in any debt, or you shouldn't be allowed to spend that money, all because we can finance our debt. There should be a limit on how much debt can be attached to the club if you want to spend money, and that should go all the way across the board. It shouldn't just.
His argument is that you wouldn't want the top clubs in the Premiership to not be able to compete with the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and PSG. And he basically says to the Premier League, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is it broken?
No, I think that's quite disingenuous, to be honest. Because for example, Mbappe's gone to Real Madrid. Anybody in the Premier League could have signed him. He was on a free. It's just whether they could put the money up or not. If Man United weren't £1 billion in debt, we could have put the money up. So that's an issue with the Glazers that have, for the last 10 years. And you could argue then that if we weren't £1 billion in debt, and I don't know how much we spent on the debt itself over the Glazers period, but it's a lot of money, we would be in a much better position if we were financially more stable off the pitch with not having to pay the debt off each season. So I wouldn't say that ultimately people go to Real Madrid because they want to win the Champions League. If we want to start competing with those on the pitch, we need to do better on the pitch and get to Champions League finals. But Man United can compete with that. You saw Liverpool, even in the down era, they managed to get Suarez, they had Torres, they had loads of really, really good players still go. We've managed to attract loads of really good players still when we're not in our best period. So I wouldn't say that it's broken at all, but I don't think the rules are fair across the board for everybody. But I agree in the sense of Everton's the best example, really. They're being told they're breaking the PSR rules, but they don't have really any club debt whatsoever. We've got $1 billion, but because we've got a higher turnover, it's absolutely fine. Brilliant.
Very good.
And then you've got to avoid situations where you've got City, Newcastle, and Villa, Chelsea that all now can spend pretty much as they want. You can't have that in football. You can't have City's owners being able to sponsor a cheer for $1 billion, and that's absolutely fine. So there's got to be a middle ground somewhere. I don't know whether that is limiting the big clubs to what they can spend or going the other way with it, but there's got to be a change. It can't be left like it is. It's just not working. And it's really weird. You've seen one club get away with it for a decade. And I agree with some of the points put back in terms of us being in debt. And then you see other clubs getting punished. Leicester went to the Championship. They've come back. They're going to get punished. It doesn't equate to what's going off or what we're seeing.
I mean, it's an interesting one. There's absolutely no doubt in that. And I just think it's tricky because what's the point in being successful and having that opportunity if you don't make the most of what you've got? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that we're ever going to know the answer to that one. But, Stu, we're going to come back over to you as we continue going through Sir Jim's interview. And obviously, as we well know, there were 3 signings that were made off the pitch. We wanted Omar Barrera, who's not in yet. Dan Ashworth, who's not in yet. Jason Wilcox, who is. And when asked about that, he basically says, we're sort of a bit handicapped in that this season, in that sense. So I think we'll do a fairly good job. But he thinks, and this is where Beanie, it comes back to what we were just saying, it will take 2 or 3 summer windows, not just transfer windows, summer windows, so 2 or 3 years to get to a better place. Would you agree with that?
Well, I've always advocated it would take. Yeah, I've always advocated once you get a steady ship, it will take 2 to 3 years to grow anything. It does. I mean, I've just launched a European website, and I know it'll take me 18 months to 2 years to get where I need to be on a level playing field with that. So it's going to be loss making for the next couple of years, and I get all of that. So you tend to plan ahead, which he will be. He is planning ahead with the Ashworth debacle, Barreda, and obviously we've got Hargreaves in there negotiating transfers alongside Wilcox. So eventually, once that is stabilised, that senior management, then you can do something about it, because he obviously talks about stability as being the key factor in any business. I don't think he's just talking about football. He's just talking about business as a whole. And stability is key, so that when you walk through that door every day, you walk into a stable environment. You walk into an environment that is pretty much from A to Z mapped out for you and everyone else in and around you. It makes your life so much easier. When you've got something, you're a director, Baz, and you can think, well, I fancy spending, like you say, fancy spending $1,000 on the company credit card today. I'll just phone up an agent and I'll take him out for dinner down at the Ivy. It's an irrelevance. Oh, it was work. And we know it's all bullshit because the agency's mates and they just go around there for the Ivy, or something along those lines. When you are able to do that, it becomes massively problematic, because, and I've always said this in football, and I genuinely mean it, and it happens throughout everybody's life every day. When the first time you become complacent, then it becomes a disease within your body, and it allows you to feel that's the best way to perform in your job when you're allowed to perform that way in your job. So complacency is a right killer, and footballers have it all, all of the time. And we've seen that within our first 11, likes of Bruno, who's been complacent for a lot of this season. Then suddenly, when things weren't going his way, and perhaps he found out Ten Hag wasn't moving, he had to decide to start playing again, etc. This is what's been happening with our club for the last 10 years. And in many ways, whether people liked Moyes or they didn't like Moyes, the club should have held its nerve with him and should have stayed with him for 2-3 seasons. He may have taken us down to the Championship. Who knows? We'll never know. But nothing's changed, has it, since Moyes stepped through the door until where we are today, apart from the fact that Eric Ten Hag has delivered the most trophies, in the last 2 years that any Manchester United manager has done. It's amazing for us since Fergie. So, and he's done all that with a group of players which are babies. He's done all that with a rudderless management system above him, and he's managed to maintain something. So what Jim's talking about is absolutely right, and what the lads are talking about is absolutely right. As fans, it's time to shut the fuck up now and actually get behind the club. That's what we need to do. We need to allow them this elasticity for the next 3 years to really see what they can do to build that club. And if they can't do it, Baz, and I think you're right, within 3 years, then they've got to hold their hands up and say, right, we got it wrong. We didn't understand this, or this. We've got to do something. But you can't keep starting again. And the other thing is what I would do, and I thought it was anyway. I thought the debt was on against the holding company, because that's what I would do. I'd just shift it to the holding company. You can do it, no problem at all. Get them to buy the debt off the club. It's no fucking big deal. And I know you're right, Dan. £1 billion in debt sounds absolutely terrible, but from a cash flow perspective, that's what you're having. So they're borrowing bits of cash, pockets of cash here from the banks. Apple do it. Apple have a short-term debt plan and a long-term debt plan. Their long-term debt plan, something like 100 billion, and their short-term debt plan's about 15.4. But we all know they can service it like that. Same with Microsoft, and so it just sounds a lot for us as a football club. So that's what I would do anyway. I would look at it from that point of view.
Yeah, for sure, and a lot of love for you there in the comments as well. And hang on, what's this? I'm just hearing that we have got. Oh, there you go, Simon Davis. Has put out
Mr. Davis.
FFP. So presumably they're going to be in the Vauxhall Conference at the start of next season.
Talking of which, I don't know if anyone knows. Will we find out Monday the results of this case at City of? Because we're about to finish the second week, aren't we?
We are due to find out soon. Yes. So,
do you think we'll find out Monday or not?
I think it'll get delayed.
Do you think it'll get adjourned?
I can't see too much coming out of it, to be honest with you. I think City will just try and have that swept under the carpet as soon as it's humanly possible, because I don't think there's a case to answer really. But
it's just the only reason I mention it because Dan's absolutely right. What City are trying to do is break the fabric of football. That's what they're trying to do. And as much as I agree with you, Baz, that if you've got it, why can't you spend it? Nobody can compete with Newcastle City. I believe the guy at Villa is just as wealthy, isn't he, as Sheikh Mansour individually? He's minted, isn't he, the guy at Villa?
Yeah, he's got a lot of money. But I've mentioned this as well because I've had a few discussions with City fans about it, and they're saying, "Oh, well, if we can do it," just Jim Ratcliffe's got plenty of money. So if they do somehow break it and it goes in that favour, I'd imagine the debt will be gone from United within the week, and then he would start spending money because he's allowed to anyway. So the only people it's going to affect is the people they're saying City are trying to protect themselves. It's going to affect your Everton, your Leicester. They'll never get near the big clubs if they can just spend whatever they want.
Totally agree. So that's why I'm saying there's got to be that level playing field to an extent. You know, cap something. I agree, but I'm also with you, Baz. That competition laws, etc., etc.
That's what I mean. It should be based on what you've earned. So if you're winning the FA Cup and you're winning the Champions League and you win, then that's prize money. You know, but no, you shouldn't just be funded by someone who's just got a spare £10 billion stuck behind the sofa because, you know, that's where. Then that's why we all had trouble with Chelsea when Roman Abramovich was the first.
It's because nobody wants to wait 3 decades to create a history, earn their way into the competition, and then win the competition. Because of FIFA and stuff like that, the fans want success straight away. The club wants success straight away. So that's the problem. That's what City have done. City, let's be honest, City could have taken 5 decades to get to where they are now, but they went, no, I don't want to do that. Well, I want it now. Give it me now.
That's what Dave says. Exactly that. That's the world today. They want it yesterday, and that's the problem. We've got too much immediacy.
And you're right, actually, because I was talking to somebody the other day, and they asked me about City's position, and I just turned around and said, well, look, here's how you measure what City have done, irrespective of how they got there. He says, how do you measure it? I said, say at this point in time, it's 1 in 10 kids about the age of 10 have got a City shirt. In 2 to 3 years' time, it'll be 5 to 6 of those kids will have a City shirt. That's what they're doing, and that's how you measure it, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's a shame.
Spain just smashed the bar after 70 minutes, so it is still really going on that game. There's a lot to be keeping your eyes on. Beanie, this is my favourite paragraph, the entire one, because Stu mentioned, and he's rabbiting, it's not rabbiting, he's repeating what I said.
Sorry.
He is rabbiting as well, to be fair, but he was repeating what I said earlier on in the week about how you don't need to come out and go, no, Ten Hag stay, and that's just literally pandering to the people that are saying, well, he can stay and be going, when it's all just, you know, a fool's errand, really. But this paragraph from the interview is just unreal. So what he said is the coach isn't the central issue at Manchester United. Instead, he pointed to the environment at the sporting side of the business. It's a sports club. It needs to be competitive. It needs a degree of intensity, but with a supportive side to it, because you're dealing with players who are relatively young. It hasn't had that type of environment historically. Then he starts going into the things that Dan's mentioned about the new World Club tournament is a step too far, potentially overplayed footballers, can't just keep taking more and more and more from footballers, which is what Dan was saying. But is it refreshing that we now have actually seen an interview from Sir Jim Ratcliffe that very clearly states, my focus here is not on Eric Ten Hag, my focus is on sorting out all of the mess that's around him before I start worrying about who's in that management position?
I think it's very easy for him to say that in pre-season, to be honest. If in a few months we're doing very poorly, his attention is going to be very much on Ten Hag because the fans are going to make it that. Do you know what I mean? The fans are going to make it that. I understand what he's saying, but I think you need the right person in the right positions. I think we've got Ashworth. I think we've got Barada. Wilcox. I'd argue Ten Hag's not maybe the right person in that position, and I think that may bite Radcliffe in the arse a little bit. But yeah, I think there's lots of aspects of United that need work. I fear that Radcliffe's kind of going down a little bit of a cul-de-sac with Ten Hag, giving him a new contract. If it doesn't work, it's more money. Yeah, I don't think he's handled the Ten Hag thing very well. But yeah, I think if we don't start well, I think us as fans will make Ten Hag very much very high on the Radcliffe agenda. Whether he says that's not the case or not, but yeah.
It's interesting because I think I disagree. I think he sounded it just about right with what Stu's saying, how he's talking as well about how, actually we can't just keep refreshing every 2 years and then expect, we're doing the same thing. Exactly that, Simon. Scapegoat. It's just happening time and time and time again. It's not, we're getting short.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean someone underperforming should keep their job just because in the past we've outed people. If that makes sense.
Listen, it's an opinion, and that's what we're all here for. But yeah, I think I would, probably go like I've said. I'm Team Ten Hag at the moment. I think he needs that season without the mess, and I think once we get that bit of clarity, it will be a little bit better. Now, I think for the most part, Simon, I agree with what you put here. There are United fans that want success now because they think it's 20 years ago. Back then, no offence, United fans felt they had a divine right to win. Time to struggle will reveal the true fans. The problem that you've got, and I don't say this to be glib, Simon, is that when you've had an amount of domination that Manchester United have had, which I would argue over the space of time that it happened in, is probably one of the greatest periods of domination. You'd certainly put it up there with your Liverpools, your Spurs, people out there that had the opportunity to do a little bit of domination at times. And indeed yourselves now, as it stands. I think when you start looking at how that's going, it's not necessarily it's a divine right. They're just used to it. So because they're used to it, they want it back again because it happens. It transfers over to the women's team. There are people that sit there and think we should be winning the WSL because we're Manchester United. They forget the fact that that team is 5 years old, 6 years now, and all of a sudden they're still expecting us to compete on the women's side in the same way that we do in the men's, even though that's just not how football works, really, that you just be able to just immediately put a team together and do that. So it's very interesting. But the one that I wanted to put out for you, Dan, 1 second, because I'm not on the right bit. There we go, was this one. So Dave mentioned earlier on, can anyone explain to me and others for that matter why the Premiership have vetoed United from buying Todibo from France, from Nice, sorry. I know Jim Ratcliffe owns them, but it's not making sense to me. So I can help you a little bit with that because I'm going to tell you now exactly what's happened. You'll know from earlier on, there was the possibility that United were not going to be in the Europa League for a moment because that's the one that Nice were in. So there was that problem. And the problem that you've got is that, let's put it into the Premier League perspective. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe owned Manchester United, but he also owned Burnley, well, you've now got two controlled, and it's a conflict of interest because you can just send people to Burnley. Burnley can just come to Manchester United. You've got that room to do it. Burnley could basically become Manchester United B team. So all those players that aren't getting games can just go and play for Burnley and they're playing at the top level. And the rules wouldn't necessarily apply because you're able to circumnavigate them too easily. Now, as he said in here, he now has to put Nice into a blind trust after our qualification. So that's what he now has to do because one owner can't have control over two clubs in the same competition without restrictions. He doesn't want to sell Nice. So that's one big problem that he's got. He's clearly got a controlling interest there, controlling interest in United. And you're then stuck going, well, which one do I prefer? And it's not good when you've got it's basically, if you've got kids, it's a bit like trying to choose between your son and your daughter. How do you do that really? You can't. So you're going to try and do the best for both of them. But of course, you might hate one of your kids. So actually, you just do it for the golden child. Now, he's not allowed to do it. What they said was they can sell him. So they didn't name the player, but they said, you said Todibo. That's obviously come out from people doing digging. But Jim Ratcliffe hasn't mentioned the player, but he said we can sell him to another Premiership club, but we can't sell him to Manchester United. Now, you just take it back to everything we've just spoken about, the whole fact of, the amount of money you can spend and the caps and all that sort of stuff. If you're sitting there at Manchester United and you go, well, look at that, we need a player, and we can only spend £12 million, and you own the other club, what are you going to do? You're just going to go, I'll tell you what, we'll sell Todibo to Manchester United for 12 million quid. That gives us the player that we want over there. It keeps us just in the right amount, and we won't argue about it. We'll just go, yeah, 12 million, that's fine. And then a bit later on, perhaps we'll put in some other sort of financial incentives and things, and that's how you cook the books. And it's really, really easy to do. So I think if you do that, then all of a sudden it just makes a mockery of the competition. You can only have one club that you are looking after, and to do that, it would be too easy, and you'd open yourself up to, I don't know, 115 charges maybe. So I think this is kind of where you end up with that one. So I hope that has been educational and, more importantly, correct. Nobody interrupted me, so I think I've done all right there.
It's not the Premier League.
It's not UEFA.
Yeah, it's not the Premier League. It's UEFA. So it's UEFA that are saying that we can't make the transfer, not the Premier League. And then the only disagreement I have with it in terms of the way it's run is it makes very little sense to what we've seen for the last 5-6 years, which is Red Bull own about 15 teams, and they transfer. Benjamin Sesko, for example, has gone between one Red Bull team to another Red Bull team. You've got Man City are just about to sign a player from Girona in Spain, and they're both in the Champions League, but because he's on loan from a second team in France, that is perfectly fine. But then you've got to take into account that the second team in France paid £6.5 million for him, or million euros. He's never kicked the ball for them, and then immediately gone on loan to Girona, where he's tore it up. This team has never spent that much money. It's just the way they've circumvented the rules. So UEFA have gone, we need to stop this happening. And then they put this rule in place. I think it was July 2023.
Right. Yeah, we're just a victim. Yeah, we're just a victim.
So, and then what's happened is it's cost us now. But the reason it doesn't make sense to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I can definitely remember this happening. Coutinho went on loan to Bayern Munich from Barcelona, and then knocked out Barcelona with Bayern Munich. So why is that okay? But we can't spend £40 million on a defender that's worth £40 million to bring him to the club, because then he's going to be playing against, or could play against, his former club. Makes no sense.
There is a better way. There is an easy way of doing this, and there's nothing that either the Premier League or UEFA could do with this. If he buys himself out of his contract with our money, and that's
like
how
Neymar.
you can do it. Yeah, and there's nothing you can do if he buys himself out of his contract with our money. And you've got to be able to trace it, by the way, and it's bang out of order and it's circumventing it, but it's a doable solution. Then he's on a free transfer and he can walk through the doors of Old Trafford, no problem. Now, Manchester United giving him the money to buy him his contract is illegal. We all know that. You just can't do it. But he's probably got enough money to buy his contract out anyway, because I bet he's only earning something like 4 or 5 million a year. Which sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds daft. Trust me. I know it sounds absolutely docile, that, considering none of us are earning anywhere near that money. But if he can find a way of doing that, and his agent can find a way of doing that, then that's one way around doing it. Yes, everybody would go, yeah, big sign-on fee. Yes, everyone would know it's not the right way of doing it, but it's been done before, and there's no rules to state you cannot buy yourself out of a contract, because if I'm not mistaken, Coutinho did it at Liverpool, correct?
Yeah, I'm sure Coutinho and Neymar did it as well before PSG.
Yeah, I know Liverpool received a lot of money for it, etc. supposedly, but I heard he put up a lot of that himself somewhere, and I know Neymar did it with PSG for himself out of his contract. So Todibo could do that. However, do we really want him? Is this just another player that everybody's getting giddy about? But do we really want him? If we're really heavily into Branthwaite, well, what's Todibo? What are we talking to him about anyway? There are areas we must, work on. They really are. But whether or not Tadebo's the man, I don't know. But if he seriously, and I genuinely mean this, if he wanted to come to Manchester United, he will find a way.
There's always ways, isn't there? As you said, people have done that for time immemorial. The last quote that I wanted to look at from the Sir Jim Ratcliffe interview, and I'm going to open this out to all of you, is obviously we're talking about regenerating and redeveloping the Old Trafford Stadium using public and private money, which is great, including the surrounding area, which might have new hotels, new housing, facilities for education and healthcare, all part of banishing this brand. Now, he then says, everyone in the world knows of Manchester because of Manchester United. True, fact, agreed. Manchester United is like Coca-Cola, isn't it? I mean, I presume he's talking about because we're red and white. Everybody, I'm not sure I know why, but it's a fact. Now, I've been quite Team Jim for quite a bit of it, but that as a sentence worries me. Because if you don't know why Manchester United are famous across the world, that's a problem. Now, I don't agree with Twillenber about very much. He knows that. We know that. But when he comes on here and he says that, you know, Sir Jim's just chatting rubbish and he's not a Man United fan, he was doing what he was doing with Chelsea, everybody knows why Manchester United are famous across the world. It doesn't require something massive. Do you think he's just had a little bit of a throwaway comment sort of moment there? Or do you sit there and think to yourself, hang on a second, that's a little bit worrying? Because I don't know. That to me, I'm not sure I know why. You should know why, because the first thing you need to know about Man United when you join, and what Fergie always did, is to make sure that those players understood the history of the club and why things like the rivalries were so important. So I'm going to leave that open to anyone who wants to talk about it before we just do our little Euros recap.
Is everybody going?
So,
I can go if you like. I thought it was quite a telling comment as well, but I think what he was talking about is brand values, isn't he? There's only 10 real brands that stick in people's minds. So if you want a pair of, if you want a soft drink, a cola drink, you always go to Coca-Cola. You think the first name on on people's football is Manchester United. Luxury cars, Ferrari, Aston Martin. So I'm hoping it was a tongue-in-cheek remark, Baz, and that he's just making a point that actually I like it. He was having a good dig at City, which first of all is always great.
That was the other side of the quote that I did like, but it was just he was
having a great dig at City. But what he was talking about, and you mentioned the Chelsea thing when he was flirting with Chelsea. I don't think he was serious with the Chelsea bid for multiple reasons. First and foremost, you don't bid 4.5 million 2 days before the deadline. You just don't do that. And that was, I'm in the market for a football club, Manchester United. We all know why he did that. But I just think that. It was all way tongue in cheek. I know what you're saying. It doesn't sit right, does he, when he's talking about that? I just think it's a bit tongue in cheek. He's a very clever guy, and I just think it was a bit. That was just my viewpoint. I just thought it was a bit tongue in cheek.
Very true indeed. Anything that the other two you want to throw in?
I think this is Bob on. I think he just prefers Pepsi, and you don't understand why people still drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah, which is amazing because Pepsi and Coke used to be, vying for the top spot in America. They're now down to third, I think. Dr. Pepper is now number 2 in America, and Coca-Cola is not. God, I just realised how boring I am. There you go. What a fact.
Dr. Pepper, what's the worst that could happen? You could
exactly right. What's the worst that can happen? We overtake Pepsi.
Okay, well, I don't want to spend ages on the Euros, but I do want to ask you all to just sort of go around and give us your sort of first impressions. Obviously, the first round of games are over. We've made it into the second someone. Sorry, I'm reading what NT's put here. I've never met someone who loves Dr. Pepper.
Interesting fact. Both of my children love it.
Really?
Yeah, like it's got to be 0, but both of them. That if we go to the shop and I say get a drink, Dr. Pepper, And I don't understand it myself because it tastes like flat pop.
It's all right, but it's just not. Like,
It's all right. It's average. Yeah, I think it's really weird. I do. Very strange. Dr. Pepper.
it's very strange, and it's meant to be mixed fruits. God knows what fruits they're putting in. None that we could taste. But yeah, the first round of games are over. Obviously, we've hit Group B's games, and we're starting to see the second lot played as well. For those that are interested, Spain is still 1-0 up. There's been a lot of argy-bargy going on, and there's only a couple of minutes left, but it is seat of your pants time for Spain as it's coming at them. But what has sort of stuck out for you? Yeah, Beanie. What has stood out for you so far in this Euro first matches?
I thought Germany. I think Germany have done much better than I thought they would. I thought they've looked much better. I remember Baz. I think maybe you said they were going to win it. Did you possibly? Yeah. Yeah, they've done better than I thought. I thought England have done worse than I thought. Yeah, I don't think anyone's really stood out, to be honest. Germany have looked good. England have looked a bit average. I thought Portugal looked a bit average actually the other night, considering I probably think they're probably one of the favourites. Yeah, I don't think it's really kicked off yet. The Euros. I worry a little from a United point of view. I think taking Shaw is a little bit strange because he's clearly not fit. I don't see that he's going to play a huge amount for England. So I think he'd probably benefit from being back in the UK with United, and yeah, I want to see a little bit more from the United players, to be honest.
No, I mean, I think I agree. We might as well move it on to. Should we move it on to England so we're not finishing on a negative? Or should we just leave it? I was talking to someone at a PE event the other day, and we were talking about, like, I don't understand it. Jay Motti tweeted quite rightly, if you're starting a right back ahead of Kobbie Mainoo, what the hell are you doing? And it's a dig at Trent. Trent's not even the best right back. Kyle Walker is doing superb in the position that he is for right back. And we've just decided we're going to put Trent in at centre midfield, sorry. And I just don't think, I mean, he's not doing bad, but he's not impacting the game enough for me. And I'm a little bit offended that Conor Gallagher's been given the opportunity because all he's got is just running about. Dan, that's what I'm seeing. I've not looked at Gallagher and gone, oh my God, this guy is an absolute legend. In fact, if anything, I'm sitting there looking at people like Conor Gallagher coming on, and I'm going, I think the golden generation for England might be coming to an end, because I can't see a world where I'm sitting here and going, my God, Conor Gallagher, that's a name that I'm going to be remembering in 20 years' time. He might prove me wrong, but at the minute, I'm not seeing it. Now, I think we'll all agree that Kobbie Mainoo, whenever he's come on, has shown himself beyond his years. Now, I know we're a United channel, so it's going to sound like we're always going to want to do that, but I genuinely think he's a better option than the ones I've seen so far in central midfield, especially when you look at the absolute crap that was served up today.
I'm in a really rock and a hard place with this because I've been called a Gareth Southgate sympathiser today, which is definitely not what I am. I look at it two ways. So if anybody wants to name a player that stepped up completely in these two games, feel free, but there isn't any.
For England?
Yeah, for England. I would say the only player that you can say is playing above what you would expect, or maybe different to what you might expect, is Gay from Crystal Palace, who's been amazing at centre-back. He's really looked assured. But Bellingham stepped up in the first game. He was absolutely non-existent today. It's like he wasn't playing. Trent didn't play badly in the first game, but it's a weird one because on the face of it, he looked like he was awful, but he's the only player that created any chances from midfield. So then you've got your midfielders not doing the work. Bowden is exceptional in terms of a player, and what you see at City is amazing. I've not seen him really once step in an England shirt, and I don't just mean in this tournament. I mean in general. He has one good game for probably every 8 appearances in England shirt, which is not enough. I'm going to do it, big star that has stepped up. So you can blame the manager for the tactics, but you can also blame the players. I think it's the same at United. So I think
But you
Stu
say
mentioned it
they were so
backstage.
far back, Dan. They were
But, yeah,
they showed at half time
Yeah.
where we are. Why is Harry Kane? We had this argument a million times. We've had it at United with Rooney. Like, why is Rooney stood on the penalty spot when he's coming? Don't do it. You need him. Harry Kane is not a player that's going to go running around loads of players. So you stick him there. What's going on? In that first game against Serbia, Saka was well forward.
Yeah, so this is the issue for me, and this is part of the problem. You can't just like the reaction to Kane's performance was really weird because every time Kane came short, why is Saka not gone in behind? Why is Bellingham not bombed on? Why is Foden not bombed on? So it's a change of system, and it basically comes to shoehorning players into positions where they can't play because they're world class. And then you end up, I put it on a response to someone, you end up with a player like Michael Carrick, who was the perfect foil to Gerrard Lampard or Scholes Gerrard or Scholes Lampard, and you could have just sat him behind them, and he only got something like 34 caps for England because he wasn't world class, but he would have brought the balance needed to be absolutely perfect. So Southgate's made a comment tonight, I don't know if everyone's seen it, about there isn't a direct replacement for Calvin Phillips, and the internet has gone mental, right? And I get where they're coming
because who is Calvin Phillips? I know he's got to grow, but he's not a player that you're going to sit there and go, "Oh my god, again, he's a player I'm in 20 years."
Do you not think that's the problem? Do you not think that's been the? I mean,
yeah, we've got not a very good bunch of English players coming through,
and I've seen a better golden generation than what we're seeing now. So when David Beckham was in the team with Lampard, Scholes, Gerrard, Shearer, Michael Owen, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Scholes, it's better than what we've got now. And the issue was the same then. They shoehorned all these world-class players onto the pitch because they're world-class, and they never went, actually, Michael Carrick would knit this together nicely. He might not be the biggest name in the world, but he does what I ask him to. And that is what he means by Calvin Phillips. He doesn't mean that he's the best player in the world. He means that for the system he liked to play that worked at the last two, he's not been able to play it because no one can play that position. No one can do what Calvin Phillips does.
There must be other English players. I mean,
there should be.
The only left back that we can take, and then we don't even put him in the squad today.
Well, I mean, that is atrocious. I don't know what's happened there, but I think ultimately, there's the players are to blame to a point, and so is the manager. You can say it's defensive football, but did you see Kyle Walker speak afterwards? He looked nervous. He looked a bit worried. He kept saying stuff like, well, the way we was reading the game, we sort of dropped back in. So that might not be Southgate saying drop back in. It might just be a player feeling. But then you need someone big enough to say, get out, get up the pitch. People won't agree, but we're missing Harry Maguire's experience at the back. He would have got us 4 yards more up the pitch.
Defenders. I don't think John Stones has been at it.
No.
I see that people are getting excited about Gay, but I don't think he's been all that either. Defensively, we are going to get mullered if we hit a really good side because we're just sitting back too much. What do you think, Stu?
Well, I think both of our lads have covered it really well. I think Dan's right about England, but Southgate made critical errors of the squad balance anyway, even before he left. And I'm sure you guys have, because I haven't been on for a while, I'm sure you guys have spoken about this already. But the game today would have been made for a 20-minute Grealish cameo. It would have been perfect for him. And Southgate, all he had to say to Grealish was, when he put him in the squad, "This is all you're going to do for me, mate. You're going to come on, 20 minutes to go, and I want you to win fouls. That's all I'm interested in. I don't want you to get involved in the game. I want you to take the ball, get up the pitch, and win fouls. That's what I want from you. And if you don't want to do that, go." Then you go to Rashford and say to Rashford, "I want that from you. This is what you get," because we have nobody that does that. The other issue is Foden out, Cole Palmer in. You look at who's performing. You look at the type of players that Cole Palmer's playing around with. You look at the type of players that Foden's playing around with. As you guys say, really good for City. But then again, it's difficult not to be. I mean, you could be average and look great at City. Johnny K. And so he's never done it for England. I think Cole Palmer would. What do you do with the midfield holding player? Well, Declan Rice has got to step up now. He's got to go to Southgate. I can't be working with Trent. I can't do it. It doesn't fit what I need. Getting somebody like Gallagher to run, that's all. But I prefer Kobe in there because Kobe's got more of a tactical brain. He's got a little bit more about him. I can break up the play. I can give it to Kobe, and then we can start moving forward. He feeds off brilliantly with Cole Palmer. Eze was like a fish out of water today. Brilliant for Palace this year, but there's a difference on international football. Gay has been okay, but the last 10 minutes, he's lost his head completely. Made 3 or 4 critical errors in the last 10 minutes. Stones, don't know what's up with him, but more importantly, we look knackered. As a team, we look absolutely dead on our feet. We look shattered. Bellingham looks knackered, bless him. Kane looks tired. He looks drained. Kane does. He's not spinning in behind. I thought Watkins was okay because he gave the Danish defence something different to talk about. Bowen, you've got to give him more than 10 or 15 minutes to affect the game. You know, I looked at that bench. I looked at Cole Palmer and I'm thinking, look what he did for Chelsea. He literally dragged Chelsea through the season, didn't he? The way that he was playing, the way that he links up between the 10 and the 8, the way that he can feed the wingers. He just plays exquisite football, brilliant play. And I think Mino, Rice, Cole Palmer, you've got to get rid of it. You've got to forget all this, as Dan says, all this bollocks about Galacticos. Dan made a really good point, actually. But if you think on back then, look at the players that those guys are playing against. Figo, Zidane. I mean, Jesus Christ, the list is endless, isn't it? Of absolute worldies, absolute worldy players. We haven't got this today, have we? But what we do have in these Euros, and one of my favourite teams that I've watched this year, Albania. What a team they are. Who'd have thought Albania would come and stick it to anybody? You know, I mean, they are playing with a passion. They're playing with a directness. Romania, okay, I get it. They were playing an average Hungary, but even so, what a couple of strikes Romania have done. We haven't got that impetus, and this is our problem. And I'm tired of these tossing players, these posers that get chauffeur driven to fucking England camps. You know, they don't live in the real world. They think they're bigger than they are. They're doing stupid Muller Rice adverts or other Saka that appears in an advert. They're doing other stuff than concentrating. So, no, I've got the Euros to concentrate on. I need to go there and perform. And they're just not doing it. And it winds me up. They've got to, you know, they're showing training, they're showing them playing cards and all this kind of stuff. Yes, you've got to have downtime, but you've got to focus on what you're there for. And that is to win football matches and to win the Euros. If we get out of the group, fair enough. But if we come across Spain, forget it. Good night. Just forget it. Because I think we're in that side of the draw, aren't we, Dan? You might be able to tell me, but we could we effectively get Spain if
I think it depends whether we finish top or second.
Right.
I think Spain and Italy are the hardest teams who can face up to someone like the semis. So yeah, it depends which side of the draw we finish, but they're definitely there.
But even Italy would give us a kicking. We just, I don't know. I'm with you. It's easy to blame the manager. You know, I've said this before. You know, but it's you. It's the player. You're the one that's on that pitch. You're the one that's doing it. You know, the comedy value of this tournament, and I don't want to say it, has been Scotland against Germany, but they froze. Scotland froze as a team. Denmark wiped the floor with us today. Yep. Not only by possession, but the way they had the ball, the way they passed the ball, the way that they were methodical in their play. Whereas we were just, I can't put my finger on what's up with us at the moment.
There's
no big names. You've just said it. You look at the defence. Where is that big name in defence? You look at what we've been doing with people talking about Ferdinand, people talking about Maguire, people talking about John Terry, people talking about proper names. John Stones, if you were writing a wish list of players that you wanted to see at Manchester United, I would argue that the vast majority of this England squad would not be on that list. Would you be choosing Jordan Pickford? No, you wouldn't. Would you want John Stones? No, you wouldn't. Would you want Gay? No, you wouldn't. Anthony Gordon on the bench? Maybe, but they've not reached these levels yet. So we don't have a good mixture. They're all just too young. They're too naive, and they're not.
just Cole Palmer for me, Baz. If I'm being honest, there's something about Cole Palmer. He fits in that minor category for me. You know, Bellingham's a bit different. He just sits somewhere different, doesn't he? But Cole Palmer, he needs to have his chance because you know he can't do any worse than Foden, can he? Let's be honest.
Well, the thing for me is, and this is where my annoyance comes from. Foden's a 10, so why is he playing on the left? With England, he's got the whole of England to pick from, and he's got a 10 playing on the left. When you've got Rashford, Grealish, you've got Gordon, these are all players that play on the left. So stick them on the left. I get really bored of seeing, and this is a Ten Hag issue as well, in my opinion. I'm getting so bored of seeing players shown into positions like, oh, we'll play a right back at left back because they've got to be better than the left back we've got. Now just play a fucking left back and let's go back to a left back plays left back, a right back plays right back, a left wing plays left wing, and we'll just do it that way because that would be better than what we're seeing now. Like, and then if Spain had the likes of Palmer, Foden, we'll say Bellingham's a 10 for the sake of this discussion, they wouldn't play all three of them at the same time. They would play one of the 10s, and then they'd have an amazing player off the bench that they'd bring on after 55, 60 minutes, and they would use him, and they'd swap him for the next game, and they'd put Bellingham in instead of Foden. They wouldn't shoe on someone where they're uncomfortable, and it's just not worked for him. They would play the best player for that position, not the best player that's best by name. And that's my frustration with England watching
that's
it.
What says everything about it, Dan, what you're just saying there. The fact that you are sitting there and going, we do not have a left back better than another right back. Now, at United, we've had that all season.
But we do.
Dalot there, or do we play Wan-Bissaka there? And the answer really is neither, because neither of you are a left back. But we didn't have a choice.
The whole
left back.
He's had the whole of England to pick from. He could have took Alfie Doherty from Luton. So why has he not just took Doherty from Luton as a left back?
Exactly. He's taking Eze from Palace.
It makes no sense to what's happening.
He could have. Exactly right. He could have. You know, I know I keep bringing on about Kilman at Wolves. I know I'm like a broken record, like a stuck record with him, but he could have. And Stones could have got. He's been linked with West Ham, hasn't he? You know, he ends up at West Ham, and I know where we're going for Branthwaite. By the way, I get it. He's a multifunctional left footer, centre back or left back. He can play left back. I get it. I understand it. But a better fit will be Kilman for us. You know, he just would. He'd be a much better fit, a much stronger leader, better player. But Southgate's. When I looked at the squad, was there something like 8 debutants? 9 debutants of a certain age that are going in, and that includes the Palace midfielder, doesn't it? Wharton, yeah. Now he's not going to see the light of day. Wharton,
he should after what we've seen.
He should, but he won't. Yeah, but he won't. He won't see the light of day.
You just need somebody to get them together. You look at the class of '92. The class of '92 may not have been the class of '92 without the likes of Eric Cantona. That likes of Brian Johnson, without people that knitted them together and showed them the way. Harry Kane can't show anybody else to go and win something because he's never bloody won something.
No.
What, no, you won't. You bloody lost the Bayern Munich the title when I hadn't lost one in about 700 years, and then they come in, go on, and you have it. It's a farce. It really is. No. But listen, I think our time is coming to a close. It's 10 o'clock, which means his alarm's going off in an hour. So he needs to get his beauty sleep.
And I definitely need it.
Yeah, bless you. But I think it has been, again, another really good show. Really good to have all of you in the chat. We'll just throw out a couple of things here that have been mentioned. Twilumba, right at the very beginning, said it's definitely not coming home. I think I agree with you there at this moment. Dave mentioned about my background. This is my relaxing one. If I've got the football on, I can't sit there with my back to it because don't tell the kids, but I don't actually have eyes in the back of my head. You know. And the last thing, Jarvis, with this one, I think Dan did mention it, but when you start talking about things like VAR, when everybody keeps sitting here and saying how bad VAR is, just get rid of it and go back to the old days, this is what happens. It doesn't take long. People forget how much we were arguing about. We should use the technology. We should use the camera. We've got all the technology. Why don't we use it? And then as soon as we go back to it, we'll go, oh, it's terrible. Why don't we use the technology? We had the cameras. We just needed to sort out the refs. It's like it's always going to be the case, and this is exactly why time wasting is being accepted again, and why, because them's the rules. So there we go. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Beanie, shout out your TikTok. Can you remember it?
MUFC Beanie 7.
Yeah, that's the read it off there. I love it every time. Oh yeah, that wants to be so MUFC Beanie 7. Stu, thank you very much for your
Pleasure.
time.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Always a pleasure to have you on. We'll be back at some point of the weekend. Don't ask me when, because there's every chance after the week I've had that I'm just going to be asleep over the weekend. So we'll see what happens. But keep your eye on our TikTok. Go and like and subscribe if you haven't already, or follow, as I got shouted at for not calling them before. You don't subscribe on TikTok. Make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube. Get yourself over to Twitter. Follow us over there as well. We're trying to get past 1,000 Twitter followers. So if you can do that, that would be amazing. An absolute pleasure. We'll see you at the weekend. And it might have been a rubbish day with England, but the fixtures are out. It's only around the corner. Premier League will be back next year. Next month, next year. What a terrible.
Yeah, crikey.